Street and Lower Main Street at that are very, my folks moved to Mount Hebron when I was just under 4 years old. I grew up in Ellicott City, went to church at St. Paul's. So Ellicott City has been a fundamental part of my life since I was very small. One of my first experiences when I was 17 years old was waiting tables at side streets down on Tiger Ave. I'm long since gone. Later on, I moved on to the Ellicott Hills Brewing Company, where a young man by the name of Mark Hemis was the general manager. And Mark fired me when I was 18 years old. We're still friends to this day because I was a dumb college student at the time. And he recognized that, and I didn't.
It's a message.
Yeah, figured as much. But years later, after determining that economics was probably not the right career path for me, I changed my trajectory and went back into the culinary world and went back to side streets in my early 20s. Started out as a line cook, became the sous chef. Eventually, I moved on to other restaurants, but there was a stopover at Tersegel's for a bit, and some other spots around town. And, you know, eventually I wound up coming back because, like everything, you tend to circle back to what you know. So after a number of years in the culinary world, I started to burn out cooking a little bit, and I called up the folks at Portales and said, I need a job. I've got a job, but I need to make more money. They gave me a job bartending, which was kind of like the Fox Garden, the hen house, but it is what it is. But prior to, and I eventually became the bar manager there, so I had the run of the show, which was a lot of fun, and those of you that came in on a frequent basis got to enjoy some of the frivolity that ensued. But prior to 16, managing the bar, you know, outside of day-to-day operations, my life was relatively carefree in Ellicott City, except for the occasional train derailment, manure spill, or the ever-present semi getting stuck underneath the bridge. Our biggest controversies in town almost always revolved around parking. It was whether there were meters or not, and meter maid was being a little too attentive, perhaps. If somebody was taking over spots in Lot D for a farmer's market, or there was another festival that was coming to town, and obviously took up parking, and parking being at a premium and being a long-standing controversy in the town, these were usually very hotly debated, to say the least, both in real life and in social media. There's other memories too. Dave, Mim, and I pumped out Sally's basement during one of the previous storms. So when I actually got to find out that there was a basement in Sally's building, it was a little scary to be down there with the river rushing by and everything bouncing off the walls. That same storm, we pumped out Mark's basement, pumped out the basement of Portales, and then life got back to normal. But this actually brings me to one of my favorite stories of Ellicott City, and it took me a long time to kind of come to grips with the idea that I'd be standing in front of you telling you about this. And I met my partner in crime and the love of my life, Annie, at the Phoenix. And I can remember exactly what it was. I wrote it down, but I know the story because I've told her a bunch of times. And she unfortunately couldn't be here this evening because of work obligations. So what you're about to hear is true. It's definitely true. She may have some alternative, we'll say, addendum to the story. But I was a few months past a breakup, and I was hanging out with my best friend Maddie at the bar. And we would get together, he was a cook as well, and we would discuss what we were doing in the kitchen and the different techniques and the cookbooks we read, and the last bottle of wine, and how we're going to set the culinary world on fire. Or basically, as we would do, get together, have a couple of beers, and solve all the world's problems. I happened to take notice of this very attractive blonde at the end of the bar. I said to Maddie, I said, she's pretty, I'm going to get her phone number. So Maddie and I walked down to the end of the bar. He struck up a conversation with her best friend Sabrina, and I started talking to Annie. And I could tell she was a little sarcastic, she was a little bit snarky, but it was very intriguing. And I'm trying as I can, best as possible, to create a banal conversation with somebody that I've just met. And she really wasn't having much of it. So I defaulted to my standard icebreaker, hey, you want to do a shot? And I expected some sort of fruity concoction, something that might very well elevate my blood sugar. And she waves Patrick over, the bartender, and goes, I'll have a shot of Jameson on his tab. Give him whatever he wants. I was flabbergasted. Absolutely floored and smitten, to say the least. The only downside is I didn't get her phone number that night. So every time we went back to the Phoenix, which was quite regular, as Mark can tell you, I definitely took up a lot of space there over the years, I would look for her. I wouldn't see her. So little did I know, she was doing the same thing. She would go to Phoenix randomly trying to see if I was there. So one day, I'm sitting in the bar, just got off work, and I'm wearing a shirt that says poop balls. Lowercase letters with a period on the end. A friend of mine made it, I thought it was funny. Annie walks in the bar with another girl. It was her sister. I had no idea it was meeting the family this evening, otherwise I would have dressed appropriately. However, her sister Lacey referred to me that evening almost entirely and subsequently as poop or poosher. To this day, we were in Vermont visiting them a couple of weeks ago. Lacey asked me, "You still have that poop shirt?" "Oh yeah, absolutely." So the funny thing is, though, which I have to go back on script for just a moment here. The next few years, Annie and I became thick as thieves. I would work every Sunday night at Portales. She would come in after work. She'd sit there and have dinner and shoot the breeze with me. Then we'd wander over to the Phoenix for the Sunday night hospitality night with all our friends. And my friends became her friends became mine. We became a thing. And we'd hang out at the Phoenix and we'd sing karaoke and we'd have a grand old time and it really was great. And every once in a while we'd wind up at one of our friends' apartments on Lower Main solving all the world's problems and that being said, as we know, things did change pretty dramatically in 2016. And in the aftermath of the 16 and 18 flood, I stood side by side back to back with many teams, really shoveling muck out of basements. It's what we did. The reality is we were trying to preserve what little was left after the flood school. I helped organize with my friends and my now family, friends of the family you get to pick, right? We organized work crews and supply donations and stabilized structures and I made a lot of new friends and lost a couple. And I really held the friends that became my extended family that much closer. There is something to say that adversity forges relationships. I know that many here have dealt with and continue to deal with the mental fallout from those events, and I'm in that with you. The reality is I put off on writing my thoughts down until right before this event. I had properly processed and grieve as well. We're still working our way through it, and we will continue to. And it's not a linear process, it happens. I'm not ashamed of it, nobody should be really, ever at all. But at 16 and 18, we lost a major part of this all, and it wasn't just buildings and businesses, it was this monumental sea change to our way of life in Maine. And at 16, we hoped that we returned bigger, more stronger, more resilient. And 18, the bitter reality did set in. And those buildings held so many memories for all of us. For me, I met Annie there. My 40th birthday, my surprise party, was in the second floor of the Phoenix, right before the world shut down in 2020, the last big bash. We had no idea it would be the last time we would be going to Phoenix. And we probably would have looked at it a little bit differently. To see the buildings finally come down, it really did break my heart, and I know it did for many of you. Every time I drive up Maryland, or up Main Street, hit the light at Maryland Avenue, I gaze out over what was there. The memories come back, and sometimes I laugh, and sometimes I sigh, and sometimes I cry, because that's just normal. It's a normal part of emotions, it's a normal part of grief.